everyone, it's D7 from D13 Airsoft here to give you another review in our tactical gear series. This time, another blouse. And kind of the obvious one. I was looking at some spare gear I had and said, you know what could I do a review on? Oh wait, I have this. I probably should have started on this because it's so obvious. But yes, this is the M81 Woodland, BDU, whatever you want to call it, blouse. It first started with the United States military back in the 80s or so, and then went from there. There's a lot to be said about this uniform, from its design, to its camo, to its history, and its impact around the world, because BDU, or M81, is definitely still a very prevalent camo, even though more and more Western nations are moving away from it. This review is not really meant to talk about the history of it, so I won't, but there is a lot to unpack here. Now, in terms of how effective that camo is, in terms of my single opinion, I'll say overall it's pretty good. I'm not going to say it's the best out there, and it's certainly not the worst. What I mean by this is it doesn't have the modern, more digital patterns in its fabric as you often see, which helps break off a lot of shapes better. In addition, I find the greens and tans, and to a certain extent the browns, to be very good in the North Carolina environment. The state of North Carolina oftentimes has a varying environment, though it has a lot of overcast weather during the rainy season, lower light during the winter times, and then in thick brush or forest, it tends to be very dark, especially in a recent rain or maybe even in the morning. So having these darker browns, tans, and greens is definitely really helpful. What isn't helpful is the black in it, as it tends to over-encompass all of it into a much more singular shape from a distance. Kind of a disadvantage with that. Funny enough, I do think having some lighter colors in here would be more beneficial to the area, and smaller shapes of black to better fit into the environment, at least for my purposes. With that said, if you're in a more darker vegetative environment, maybe more of like a jungle environment perhaps, or something with a lot of thick canopy around you, this darker camo may have some benefit to you. With that said, overall it still does a really good job, and I definitely like it for pragmatic purposes. Now, going into features of this blouse design, you'll see the front of it has four pockets, two on the breast and two lower down, much larger. Call them abdomen pockets or thigh pockets, whatever you want to call them. I will say all four of these are great for me, as I tend to use LBE style tactical gear with body armor underneath the blouse. However, for a lot of guys in the tactical world, they often use pistol belts and plate carriers, which these longer blouses with those pockets tend to get in the way or are largely useless underneath the plate carrier. So what you saw in a little bit of history lesson with this equipment was, as modern body armor plate carriers were developed in the 90s into early war and terror, a lot of times you see this thing called a raid mod, where guys would take the pockets off and put them onto the sleeves, which would eventually develop and have a lot of influence into future military uniforms. The cuffs are held together with button adjustments instead of the more contemporary Velcro, though I tend to find the button ones good, because once I get adjustments I like, I usually just keep them there. Elbows have a basic second layer to them for extra padding. Nothing special, but it's good to have. All the pockets are held together with two buttons, and then I personally attach some Velcro after that. We'll talk about that later in terms of some cons with the blouse design. Button up is buttons, which is good. Some guys like the Zippo and Velcro, more modern design. Works good as well, but I mean, how quickly do you need to take that blouse on and off? So for me, I have no issue with the buttons. And there's nothing unique about the back outside of a large palette for the camo pattern. Now let's go into some of the pros of why I like this. First off, price. A lot of these are pretty darn cheap. Even if you get them, air quote, brand new. I'm not sure how new they actually are, but a lot of times it's still in the packaging. You can get them as low, especially at like surplus stores in person. You can get these as low as $10 I've seen, and you can get higher quality ones brand new as high as like $30, which for a good quality blouse is not really that bad at all. Another pro is I really like the older design with the pockets. I like how it's a bit larger, goes down below your belt line if you get a larger blouse. And again, talking about the camo, I mean, it's a cool vibe. I mean, a lot of guys have a lot of nostalgia for this type of camo, and it is quite good overall. Again, not the worst, not the best, but it's definitely above average in effectiveness in most environments that I would see myself in. Now let's talk about cons. So the biggest con for me is the lack of Velcro. So this includes on the pockets, where a name tape would be just above one of those pockets, and then nothing on the shoulders. So I personally, on one of the uniforms I use a lot, I have sewn on there. You saw some of that on here, but also doing on the sleeves for like flag patches and name tapes and whatnot. And then the other con I would have would be the material and stitching it's made out of. It's definitely a product of its time where it's still very durable and it still lasts today, but it has more of a cottony feel to it. You can definitely tell that in the material makeup, and it's definitely not the most enjoyable blouse to wear in the hot summertime. If you're in a colder environment, it's much better, but it definitely has just a little bit of thickness to it that definitely helps with durability, but man, it really does suck in the summertime. So overall, do I like this uniform? Absolutely. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. Especially trying to get a camo, whether it's for an airsoft game, a shooting course, or just being tactically squared away. It is a good camo to start with. It mixes with a lot of good stuff. It fits a lot of environments. And, you know, sometimes older designs are good. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you agree or disagree with this review, and if you want to have any more information to it. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys around next time. Bye.